University, I extend a very warm welcome to all the enthusiastic participants of this masterclass and our two most eminent speakers, Professor Asheesh Gupta and Professor Praveen Arora. It is impossible to summarize their achievements in a couple of minutes, but I'll try to give you a very quick and brief overview. Professor Asheesh Gupta is the Honorable Pro Vice Chancellor of J.K. Lakshmipat University. He is an alumnus of IIT Kanpur and IIM Calcutta. He is the former director of Mckinsey Knowledge Center and Mckinsey Capability Center, co-founder and director at 9.9 Media Samad Community, and the industry scholar at Cornell Institute for Health Future. He has had a robust career spanning over 3 decades and continuing in the fields of engineering, strategic consulting, higher education, institution building, and elder care. It is an honor to have you on the panel, sir. Coming to our next speaker, Professor Praveen Arora is an alumnus of IIT Delhi and IIM Calcutta with more than 25 years of deep experience as a senior executive in finance sector. He is the former business head at GE Money, former chief operating officer at MFI and BP Finance Care, and former chief business officer at Vistaar Financial Services Private Limited. Presently, as a part of the Institute of Management of JKLU, he is one of the key architects of our BBA in FinTech program. I'm delighted to welcome you to today's discussion, sir. Now let me share with you all a short video that forming the crux of our discussion tonight.
Human plus worker. Change the workplace or hinder the workforce. Today's workers are equipped and empowered by technology, incorporating it to perform existing roles in new ways and to adapt for new roles that did not exist in the pre-digital era. The workforce is becoming human plus, with a constantly growing set of capabilities made possible through technology. Not only is every job today becoming a human plus role, every new role that's created in the future will be human plus from the start. Leaders are recognizing that the most important thing about employees is not where they come from, but how far they can go. The human plus worker will build the pathway to the next big wave of innovation. How will your technology strategy empower them to get you there?
In this informative and enriching masterclass on enhancing the skills of the future with the Born Digital Pinnacle MBA, Asheesh sir and Praveen sir will be discussing the skills and competencies that an MBA student needs to build to be job ready in this constantly changing and upgrading digital world. So strap right in and absorb all the deep insights that our speakers have to share and post your questions in the Q&A section. Now, I invite Professor Asheesh Gupta to open this discussion by sharing his thoughts on physical workspace and permanent workers.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Can all of you hear me? Am I audible?
Sure.
Yeah. Okay. So listen, I think, this little half a minute film may have given you an idea. And even without that, I'm sure all of you are very aware about how the workplace and how the work itself is changing in a very, very significant way. I mean, I can tell you when I did my MBA almost 25 or maybe more years ago, things were very different. If you knew your basics, if you knew your subjects, you were okay. And people would train you, people would teach you. There was a lot of supervision which was possible. The workplace ensured that we were working together in one office. And there were, coaches and seniors and managers around us who would guide us. And very quickly, we would learn and imbibe the skills needed to do our work efficiently. A lot of the work used to be done by hand. A lot of the work required analysis, and that's why some of us were recruited by organizations because we could do analysis well. But I think we relied on simple tools. Excel was a great. We would learn Excel and you were fine. You could do a lot of analytical work with that. I think what is happening now, and this is not a new thing, this is not something which is 1 year, 6 months, etc. But the future of work has really been shaped and modified and fundamentally altered. This alteration started about 6, 7 years ago. And the big thing that happened was the advent and adoption of technology in a very, very central way. Now, it is true that not everybody is working on computers. Not everybody is working, all the time with the machines and equipment and AI and, robotics and so on. But what has happened is that technology has become embedded very centrally in almost every aspect that we do. And that has then a number of implications. That is what, and maybe Professor Arora will talk about it later on when he talks of the MBA program, that, 3 years ago, when we envisaged what is it that will make students and MBA graduates successful, we kind of redesigned, and brought in a lot of new things into the program. Then let's talk about the last 1 year. The last 1 year has been quite dramatic in so many ways. Not only has it affected work, it has also affected health. It has also affected, personal lives. I forgot to ask you, but I'm hoping that all of you, are safe and are taking care of yourself. But what this 1 year or 1.5 years has done is it has accelerated the transformation of work in a very material way. What are some of the main things then that have happened? And I think you could summarize it into just 5 things, what you see on the screen. One, there is now a much greater proliferation and acceptance of distributed workplaces, which means, today, most of us are working from home. I'm sure those of you who are studying or who are still, pursuing some form of education are learning at home. And this has been the predominant mode of work, education, study, etc. for the last 1.5 years. Again, this is not new. This was anyway happening. People were becoming more flexible. But suddenly, what COVID has done is that it has opened everybody's eyes to the possibility of a virtual workplace. And that has significant implications for what will be necessary for success going forward. The second big thing is that, the concept of work itself has got transformed. Again, gig working, gig economy is not a new thing. Okay, many of you, I'm sure, would have done freelance, projects, assignments, and they were always there. I think suddenly a lot more organizations, companies, even large corporations have realized that there is a certain, kind of work, or in fact, a lot of work for which you can rely on gig workers, on people who want to work on project basis, people who want to work on what they like to do, right? So it has created opportunities both for organizations and for people. Today, many people are choosing to do what they want to do. And they are not tied to one organization. They are choosing to do it for multiple organizations. That's a big change. That's something which I think will increasingly become more dominant. And in the next 5 to 10 years, be prepared for a workplace where, you can, on one hand, you will not have the certainty of a permanent worker the way a lot of people have today, but you'll also have the freedom to do what you want to do. The third thing, which I don't have to emphasize too much, is the emphasis on data, the emphasis on tech-driven decisions, whether they are decisions on finance, whether they are decisions on people, operations, manufacturing, strategy, marketing, sales. Everywhere you see a lot of data, people looking at analytics, people looking at using AI and machine learning to draw and derive better and faster decisions, and use of tech has proliferated. Automation has proliferated. The fourth thing is, it's no longer, or more and more, I wouldn't say no longer, it was no longer even 5 years ago, but today more and more people are saying, look, I don't have to depend on one geography to supply my products, supply my raw material, but also to supply my people. You could be part of a supply chain in the United States sitting out of India, right? So the people supply chain has also become very global and very diversified. And the final point is the environment. I think we all have to embrace a much higher level of uncertainty and therefore demonstrate a much higher level of flexibility to continue to stay relevant as things change and as, workplace and work evolves. So no matter, and by the way, these things are not about just one type of work. This is really what knowledge workers, particularly people like you and me, who want to be part of and who are part of the knowledge economy, will face no matter what sector, no matter what functional area they work in. And I think this needs to be an important part of how you decide. Some of you, or probably all of you, are now thinking about your own decision to look at what sort of capabilities, what sort of education and degrees you should look at next. I think it's important to understand what is the environment in which you will be working and what is it that people and organizations will expect from you as you decide how you should build yourself going forward, right? So the basis on which decisions were taken as late as 2 years ago, I would want to emphasize, should not be the basis and cannot be the basis on which you take your decision today. The programs, the qualifications, the courses, the pedagogy, the textbooks, which made perfect sense 5 years ago, do not make sense today. And I will go as far as to say that anything, any individual, any institution, any program which has not appreciated this particular thing and which has not, reinvented itself in the last few years really runs the risk of being left behind in the new workplace. So I cannot emphasize enough about this point. I think if there is one takeaway that you should have from all of this, it's this, that the future is not going to mirror the past. There are some very fundamental changes, particularly in the professional world, which all of you are going to be part of and which, all of you aspire to lead at some point in time. You have to understand that there are fundamental changes which are, and therefore your decisions also need to be fundamentally different as you think about the future. Yeah, go on, please.